With me is David Ashford. Of course, the big news here today is all about abortion for you. You've come forward, you've actually now got everything in place, and you've committed to a date. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the appointed day order, which is where the date is named for the Act to come into operation, that will come before March's Tynwald, and the appointed day that has been named is the Friday, the 24th of May.
How's it looking? I mean, are you on schedule? Will it likely to be changed, or are you confident you're going to hit that date?
No, I mean, the reason we've picked that date is under the Act, there's certain regulations we need to bring forward and be laid before Tynwald, and for instance, in relation to Section 17 of the Act, there needs to be certain provisions in place for the counselling service that need approval. There's regulations around the disposals of fetuses, and also the way that the woman's consent is obtained. Those regulations will be ready for laying at the May sitting at Tynwald, and so it only makes sense that the day after that sitting is the day we'll name as our appointed day to bring the whole Act in.
No bumps in the road to go? I mean, I know you were asked if people can still obviously remove themselves from this whole process, health people, and they can, and you've had quite a few that have expressed an interest not to be involved in abortions.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly legitimate. There is the clause within the Act that allows for people to be conscientious objectors. I supported that as it went through. I think that's only right. And, you know, obviously we have plans around that. As I announced in there, we'll be looking to partner with a third-party organisation, a very well-respected and renowned one, to be able to deliver the services should we come under pressure and not have the facilities to do so. But all the planning that we've done suggests that we will be able to deliver the services as planned.
Which is having abortions here on the Isle of Man for the first time.
Here on the island. One of the key things, of course, is people always think of abortions in terms of surgical intervention. What the Act does is, of course, it allows women to make decisions earlier than they would have been otherwise. So we actually expect the amount of surgical interventions to be relatively low. That's shown in other jurisdictions that have similar types of abortion laws around the world. What we expect there to be more demand for is obviously the medicated intervention, which is at the early stages. It is quite rare for women to go through a pregnancy and then decide in the latter stages that they want an abortion. But it's a huge social change. It's a social change I've supported throughout the passage of the Act, and I think we're delivering on what the people of the women of the island wanted, needed, and have quite rightly demanded.
Yeah, it's still very emotive. I mean, we've all seen the protests, the demonstrations. What is in place to stop that happening? And because, I mean, safe zones, or whatever you want to call them, have to be there, do they? Because especially when it comes in initially, there's probably going to be a little bit of potential demonstrations or disagreements.
Well, the Act allowed for exclusion zones, the exclusion zone round the hospital, and also any named building that the department may name. The exclusion zone will be in place around the hospital for the delivery of the services. But as I say, in relation to it, we expect there to be relatively few surgical interventions. We expect it to be more early medicated intervention. It is an emotive issue. When I was a backbencher, I spoke to people on both sides of the argument. When I became minister, as you can imagine, because I became minister in the middle of all this, of the passage of the Act, I got inundated again from both sides of the argument. You know, I appreciate and respect the views on both sides. I did mention in House of Keys the one thing I didn't quite respect was the way some of the protesters went about things, but I do acknowledge there are very firm views on both sides, but it is now an Act, and it is law, and it will be being introduced on the 24th of May.
The end of a long journey.
I think it has been a long journey. I mean, we now focus on things of just the passage of this Act, but there's people who've been campaigning for change for 10, 15, 20 years, if not longer. So, you know, Dr Allenson, who brought it forward as a private member's bill, and we mustn't forget that it was a private member's bill by the Honourable Member for Ramsey, I think, you know, it's a fundamental social change, but it's one that's been a long time coming.